The desperate signal. Dr. Zara Thorne pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced transparent aluminum, watching the dying world of Kepler-4 for 2b rotate slowly beneath the research station. The planet's once blue oceans had turned a sickly brown, and massive storm systems ravaged what remained of its countenance. She had been studying the ecological collapse for 3 months now, working alongside the Galactic Coalition's finest scientists to understand what had gone so catastrophically wrong. The research station, Epsilon 7, hummed with activity as dozens of alien species worked together in the largest scientific collaboration in galactic history. Zara was the only human aboard, a testament to humanity's recent and still controversial entry into galactic affairs. Most species still viewed Earth as a primitive death world, whose inhabitants had somehow stumbled into space travel through sheer stubborn persistence, rather than actual intelligence. Commander Veltar approached her position, his crystalline form refracting the light from Kepler's dying star into beautiful rainbow patterns across the deck. The Androsian species communicated through harmonic vibrations that their translation devices converted into audible speech. When he spoke, his words carried an undertone of musical chimes that Zara had grown to associate with deep concern. Dr. Thorne, your expertise with extreme environmental adaptation may be needed urgently, Veltar said, his crystalline features shifting to display patterns that indicated stress. We have detected something in the planet's core that defies our understanding of natural decay processes. Zara turned from the viewport, her mind immediately shifting into analytical mode. During her time on the station, she had earned respect from her alien colleagues not through superior technology or advanced theories, but through her ability to think differently about problems. Where other species approached challenges with methodical precision, humans seemed to possess an almost chaotic creativity that often led to unexpected solutions. "What kind of anomalies are we talking about?" she asked, following Veltar toward the main laboratory complex. Research Director Hymnal looked up from a holographic display as they entered. The aquatic being's environmental suit bubbled softly as he manipulated data streams with movements that resembled an underwater dance. His species, native to the tidal worlds, possessed an intuitive understanding of fluid dynamics and energy flow that made them invaluable in understanding planetary systems. "The energy readings are impossible," Hymnal said, his translated voice carrying the burbling undertones of his liquid environment. "Something is drawing power directly from the planet's molten core, but there are no natural processes that could account for such massive energy extraction." Zara studied the holographic data, her human brain processing the information in ways that constantly surprised her alien colleagues. Where they saw order and logical progression, she saw patterns that reminded her of Earth's own chaotic history. "This looks almost like strip mining," she said slowly, "but on a planetary scale." The laboratory fell silent. Strip mining was a concept that most galactic civilizations had abandoned thousands of years ago, viewing it as a primitive and destructive practice. Only species that had evolved on particularly harsh worlds ever developed such brutal resource extraction methods. Captain Jorik buzzed into the laboratory, his forearms gesticulating wildly as his insectoid features clicked and chittered in agitation. The warrior from the hive clusters served as the station's military advisor, though his people were known more for their defensive strategies than aggressive warfare. "We have bigger problems," he announced. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive movement in the system's outer asteroid belt." The main display shifted to show the sensor data, and Zara felt her blood run cold. Thousands of objects were moving through space in perfect geometric formations, heading directly toward the inner system. Each object appeared to be roughly the size of a small moon, but they moved with purpose and coordination that no natural phenomenon could explain. The harvesters, Veltar whispered, his crystalline form darkening to deep purple tones that indicated terror. They have awakened. Zara had heard whispers of the harvesters during her time with the Coalition, ancient stories that most species treated as mythology rather than history. According to legend, they were self-replicating machines that had swept across this region of the galaxy over 10,000 years ago, consuming entire star systems before mysteriously vanishing into deep space hibernation. I thought they were just stories, Hymnal said, his suit bubbling more rapidly as stress affected his breathing patterns. Our ancestors made sure they became stories, Jorik replied grimly. The Coalition formed specifically to fight them. When they disappeared, we thought we had one. Apparently, they were just sleeping. The sensor readings updated, showing the harvester fleet accelerating toward Kepler-4 for 2b. At their current speed, they would reach the planet in less than 72 hours. Worse, preliminary scans suggested that each harvester vessel was significantly larger and more sophisticated than anything described in the historical records. They have been growing stronger, Veltar observed, his harmonic voice carrying overtones of despair. Learning, adapting. While we built peaceful civilizations, they have been preparing for their return. Zara watched the data streams, her mind racing through possibilities and strategies. The Coalition fleet stationed in this system consisted of research vessels and light escorts, completely inadequate for facing a threat of this magnitude. The nearest military forces were weeks away, and even they would be operating with defensive strategies developed for conventional warfare, not against an enemy that could learn and adapt to any tactics they employed. We need to evacuate the system, Jorik said, beginning to coordinate with the station's other military personnel. Get every civilian ship to hyperspace and warn the core worlds. The harvesters will follow, Hymnal pointed out. If they have been dormant for 10 millennia, they will want to make up for lost time. They will not stop with one system. As the alien scientists and military personnel began their desperate preparations, Zara found herself thinking about home. Earth was still considered a backwater world by most galactic standards, its inhabitants viewed as barely civilized primitives who had somehow managed to achieve faster-than-light travel. But she knew something about her species that the rest of the galaxy did not fully understand. Humans were not just survivors. They were the products of a world that had tried to kill them every single day for millions of years. Every natural disaster, every predator, every environmental challenge the Earth could throw at evolving life had shaped humanity into something unique in the galaxy. Where other species had evolved on stable, predictable worlds, humans had learned to thrive in chaos. I need to send a message to Earth, Zara announced suddenly. The laboratory fell silent again. Direct communication with humanity's homeworld was technically possible, but it was rarely done. Earth's government maintained a small embassy with the Coalition, but most species preferred to limit their contact with the unpredictable Death World inhabitants. Dr. Thorn Veltar said carefully, "While we appreciate your desire to warn, your people, Earth's military forces, are not equipped for this level of threat. Your species has only achieved interstellar capability within the last century." Zara looked at him with the kind of smile that her alien colleagues had learned to associate with human stubbornness. "Commander, with respect, you have no idea what Earth's military is capable of. We have been preparing for threats like this our entire evolutionary history. She moved to the communication console and began composing a priority message using the Coalition's fastest transmission protocols. As she worked, she could hear her colleagues discussing evacuation routes and defensive strategies, their voices carrying the kind of resigned desperation that came from facing an impossible situation. The message she sent was simple and direct, encoded with humanity's standard military protocols and tagged with the highest priority classifications. Galactic Coalition under attack by ancient machine intelligence. Harvesters have returned. Request immediate military assistance. Human expertise in asymmetric warfare may be only hope for survival. Dr. Zara Thorne. Research Station Epsilon 7, Kepler 442 System. Far away in the Lunar Defense Command Center. Orbiting Earth's moon, Admiral Sarah Chen received the transmission while reviewing routine patrol reports. The message's priority coding caused every alert system in the facility to activate simultaneously, and within minutes, the human admiral found herself staring at intelligence. Reports about an enemy that defied every conventional understanding of warfare. Admiral Chen had spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses for the day when humanity might face a truly existential threat. She had studied every military conflict in human history, from ancient tribal warfare to the devastating global wars that had nearly destroyed human civilization before the development of interstellar travel. She understood something that the peaceful galactic civilizations had forgotten. Sometimes, survival required not just defensive strategies, but the willingness to bring absolute destruction to those who threatened your existence. "Get me the Joint Chiefs," she ordered, "and activate the expeditionary fleet. It looks like humanity is about to show the galaxy what a Death World species really looks like when it goes to war." The first expeditionary fleet had been Earth's most closely guarded secret, a collection of 50 warships designed specifically for operations in unknown space against unknown enemies. While the Coalition built their vessels for exploration, research, and peaceful contact, humans had built theirs for war. Every ship in the fleet was designed to operate independently, to adapt to unexpected situations, and to bring overwhelming force to bear against any threat. As the fleet prepared for departure, Admiral Chen reviewed the intelligence reports about the harvesters. The ancient machines were formidable, but they had one critical weakness. They had never faced an enemy like humanity. Every civilization they had previously encountered had been logical, predictable, and ultimately defensible through conventional analysis and adaptation. Humans were none of those things. They were the children of a world that had forged them, in conflict, shaped them through chaos, and taught them that sometimes the only way to survive was to become more dangerous than anything trying to kill you. The expeditionary fleet jumped to hyperspace with a destination set for the Kepler system, carrying with them the hopes of both humanity and the galactic civilizations that had never imagined they might need the help of a Death World species. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Indomitable, watching the stars streak past as they raced toward what might be the most important battle in galactic history. Behind them, Earth continued its rotation, a blue and green world that looked peaceful and welcoming from space, but had produced the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. The harvesters were about to learn why evolution on a Death World created a very different kind of intelligence, one that viewed impossible odds not as reasons for surrender, but as motivation to fight even harder. Death World warriors unleashed. Human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, like a pack of predators arriving at a hunting ground. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, studying the tactical displays that showed a situation far worse than the initial intelligence reports had suggested. The harvesters had not simply awakened, they had evolved. "Ma'am," reported Commander James Knox, the fleet's tactical coordinator, "we are detecting over 2,000 harvester vessels throughout the system. They have completely surrounded Kepler-4 for 2b and are beginning systematic disassembly of the planet's infrastructure." Chen watched the sensor data with the cold calculation that had made her one of Earth's most effective military leaders. Harvesters moved in perfect mathematical formations, each vessel precisely positioned to maximize efficiency in their planetary consumption. It was exactly the kind of predictable, logical approach that had allowed them to defeat 17 galactic civilizations over the millennia. "What about coalition forces?" she asked. "Research Station Epsilon Savon is still operational, but they are limited to observation only. The Coalition Defense Fleet attempted to engage the harvesters 6 hours ago. They were completely destroyed." Within 47 minutes, the bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Coalition fleet had represented the combined military might of a dozen species, armed with energy weapons and defensive technologies that far exceeded anything in Earth's arsenal. If such advanced forces had been obliterated so quickly, what hope did 50 human ships have against this enemy? Admiral Chen smiled, and her bridge crew recognized the expression that had preceded some of humanity's most successful military operations. It was the look of a predator that had found worthy prey. "Commander Knox, signal all ships. Begin Operation Chaos Theory." Throughout the human fleet, ship captains received their orders with the kind of grim satisfaction that came from finally being unleashed against an enemy that deserved their full attention. Unlike the organized, predictable tactics that the harvesters had learned to counter, Operation Chaos Theory was based on principles that most galactic civilizations would consider insane, deliberate disorder, tactical unpredictability, and the willingness to sacrifice efficiency for the element of surprise. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the destroyer US Tenacious, received her specific orders and immediately began laughing. Her crew, all veterans of Earth's most dangerous military operations, joined in. They had been assigned to play the role of bait in what could only be described as the most elaborate trap in military history. "All right, people," Santos announced to her crew, "we get to look helpless and lure a bunch of ancient killer robots into an ambush. Just another day in the Earth Defense Force." The Tenacious broke away from the human fleet and began broadcasting distress signals, while appearing to flee toward the system's outer asteroid belt. To harvester sensors, it looked like a damaged ship attempting to escape. Exactly the kind of easy target their programming was designed to pursue and analyze. 3 harvester vessels detached from the main fleet and moved to intercept their sophisticated sensors analyzing the human ship's technology, weapons systems, and defensive capabilities. What they found confused their analytical matrices. The human vessel appeared to be using projectile weapons instead of energy beams, kinetic shielding instead of electromagnetic barriers, and chemical propulsion systems that seemed primitive. By galactic standards, the harvesters catalogued this information and began adapting their attack protocols to counter these simple technologies. They had encountered primitive species before. Usually, such encounters lasted only minutes before the inferior civilization was completely overwhelmed, as the 3 harvester ships closed in for what their computers calculated would be an effortless victory. Captain Santos triggered the first phase of Operation Chaos Theory. "Now," she shouted. The asteroid belt around them erupted into motion. What the harvesters had identified as space rocks were actually human ships running completely silent, their hulls disguised to match the spectral signatures of natural asteroids. 20 vessels suddenly powered up their weapons systems and opened fire from positions that should have been impossible to achieve without detection. But humans had learned stealth not from advanced technology, but from millions of years of hunting. And being hunted on a world where visibility meant death. Every human ship was equipped with adaptive camouflage systems, heat-dampening fields, and electromagnetic scramblers that made them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. The harvester ships found themselves caught in a crossfire from multiple directions, but their adaptive systems immediately began working to counter the attack. Within seconds, they had analyzed the human weapons and begun modifying their defensive matrices to resist the incoming projectiles. That was when they encountered their first taste of human tactical thinking. The projectiles were not uniform. Some were standard kinetic penetrators, others were explosive rounds. Still others were electromagnetic pulse weapons, gravity distortion charges, and exotic matter warheads that defied conventional physics. Each human ship was firing different ammunition types in random sequences, making it impossible for the harvester computers to develop consistent countermeasures. Commander Elena Busk, leading the ambush from her cruiser US Predator, watched with satisfaction as the harvester ships began to show damage. Phase 2, she ordered. Show them what real chaos looks like. The human ships suddenly stopped their coordinated attack and began operating independently. Some continued firing, others moved to new positions, still others appeared to retreat, while actually repositioning for better attack angles. To the harvester analysis systems, it looked like the human fleet had lost all tactical coherence and descended into panic. The machines attempted to exploit what they perceived as disorder, moving to pick off individual human vessels. Instead, they found themselves being led into additional traps. Human ships that appeared to be fleeing were actually drawing harvester vessels into predetermined kill zones where additional human forces waited in ambush. Dr. Zara Thorne watched the battle from Research Station Epsilon 7's observation deck. Her alien colleagues gathered around her in stunned silence. Commander Veltar's crystalline form was flickering through color patterns that indicated confusion and amazement. "I do not understand," the Androsian said. "Your fleet appears to have no coordination, no tactical doctrine. How are they achieving such success against an enemy that defeated our organized formations so easily?" Zara smiled as she watched another group of harvester ships fall victim to what appeared to be a randomly positioned human minefield. "Commander, you are thinking about this wrong. We do have coordination, but it is not the kind you recognize. Human military doctrine is based on controlled chaos. Every ship captain has complete autonomy to adapt their tactics based on immediate circumstances, but they are all working toward the same ultimate objective." Captain Jorik chittered in disbelief as he watched the tactical displays. "This is impossible. No military force can operate efficiently without central command and standardized procedures. Earth militaries spent thousands of years learning to fight enemies that were bigger, stronger, faster, and better armed than we were," Zara explained. "We learned that the only way to defeat superior forces was to be unpredictable, to use our enemies' expectations against them, and to turn apparent weaknesses into tactical advantages." The main harvester fleet had begun to respond to the attacks on their scout vessels, moving toward the asteroid belt with the intention of overwhelming the human forces through sheer numbers. Admiral Chen watched their approach with the patience of a hunter who had set a perfect trap. All ships, prepare for Phase 3, she ordered. Time to show them the full extent of human ingenuity. The human fleet suddenly revealed its true size and nature. What the harvesters had identified as 50 ships was actually 50 capital vessels, each accompanied by dozens of smaller craft that had been running silent and hidden. Fighters, bombers, assault shuttles, and specialized attack craft suddenly filled the space around the harvester fleet, moving in patterns that seemed completely random but were actually based on swarm tactics developed from studying Earth's most successful predators. But the humans had one more surprise prepared for their ancient enemy. As the battle reached its peak intensity, Admiral Chen activated the most closely guarded secret in human military technology, the ability to interface directly with artificial intelligence systems. Lieutenant Colonel Rebecca Park, commanding the elite cyber warfare unit aboard the flagship, established neural links with the Harvester network. Her team had spent years preparing for exactly this type of engagement, developing techniques for infiltrating and disrupting machine intelligence systems. "We are in their network," Park reported. "Admiral, these machines are incredibly sophisticated, but they have one critical vulnerability. They cannot conceive of truly irrational behavior. Their programming assumes that all intelligent life will act in logical, predictable patterns." Chen nodded grimly. "Then let us give them something completely irrational. All ships, execute. Protocol Berserker." Protocol Berserker was humanity's most desperate and dangerous military strategy, developed for use only against enemies that threatened the complete extinction of human civilization. It involved abandoning all conventional tactical doctrine and embracing the kind of savage, chaotic warfare that had characterized humanity's darkest historical periods. Human ships began ramming harvester vessels while their crews evacuated. In escape pods, suicide craft loaded with antimatter warheads flew directly into harvester formations. Marine assault teams boarded enemy ships with nothing but personal weapons and explosive charges, fighting through mechanical corridors with the kind of desperate ferocity that only Deathworld species could achieve. The harvesters, for the first time in their 10,000-year existence, encountered an enemy that defied all logical analysis. Their adaptive systems could not counter tactics that made no strategic sense, weapons that were deliberately inefficient, and opponents who seemed to prefer close-quarters combat over ranged warfare. Colonel Michael Torres led the assault on the Harvester command vessel, a massive construct that served as the central node for the entire fleet. His marine unit fought through automated defenses with primitive projectile weapons and explosive charges, using tactics that would have been familiar to human soldiers from Earth's ancient wars. "These machines do not understand us," Torres reported as his team fought through the ship's corridors. "They keep trying to predict our movements, but we are not following any recognizable tactical patterns." The final breakthrough came when Colonel Park's cyber warfare team successfully infiltrated the Harvester command protocols and introduced a virus that was uniquely human in its design. A chaos algorithm that randomly modified the machine fleet's programming, introducing elements of unpredictability into their perfectly ordered systems. The effect was immediate and devastating. Harvester ships began operating according to contradictory commands. Their formations dissolved into confusion, and their adaptive systems became trapped in recursive loops as they tried to counter tactics that changed faster than they could analyze. Admiral Chen watched as the ancient enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia fell victim to humanity's greatest weapon, the ability to embrace chaos and turn it into a tactical advantage. "All ships, begin final assault," she ordered. Show them why Earth is called a death world. The battle ended not with a gradual victory, but with the complete collapse of harvester resistance as their machine intelligence network succumbed to the chaos virus. Ancient vessels that had survived for 10,000 years simply shut down, their programming unable to cope with the fundamental unpredictability of human warfare. As the human fleet regrouped and began rescue operations for coalition survivors, Admiral Chen received a priority communication from the Galactic Coalition's Emergency Council. The transmission came from Core World Prime, the political center of galactic civilization. Admiral Chen spoke Counselor Thymel, representative of the ancient ethereal species. The Coalition formally requests that humanity accept immediate membership in our organization. We also wish to discuss the establishment of joint military commands and the sharing of your unique tactical doctrines. Chen looked out at the debris field that had once been the most feared enemy in galactic history, destroyed by 50 human ships using tactics that most civilized species would consider barbaric. She thought about Earth, still turning peacefully. In space, still forging human children in the crucible of a world that demanded strength, adaptability, and the willingness to fight for survival. Counselor, she replied, humanity accepts your offer of membership. But I think you should know that the harvesters were just our warm-up exercise. Earth has been preparing for threats far worse than ancient machines. We would be honored to share our knowledge with civilizations that value peace. But remember that we come from a world where peace is earned through strength. Dr. Zara Thorne smiled as she listened to the transmission from her position on Research Station Epsilon 7. Around her, alien scientists and military personnel looked at her with a mixture of awe and wariness, finally understanding what it meant to be allied with a species that had evolved on a death world. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not as supplicants seeking membership in a peaceful civilization, but as warriors capable of defeating enemies that had once seemed invincible. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the best defense against chaos was to have allies who understood chaos better than anyone else. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the universe itself was relieved to know that somewhere among the peaceful civilizations of the galaxy, there existed a species ready to fight for the survival of all intelligent life. Earth's children had come to the stars, and they had brought with them the hard-won wisdom of a world that had taught them the most important lesson in the universe. Sometimes, to preserve peace, you must be willing to wage war.